I'm not going to be excited to refer you after you've done something well for me once. I need to know you're going to be consistent.
Welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry, brought to you by me, Ron Holt, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop, America's fastest growing cleaning company. I get a chance to sit down with home service industry pros and other entrepreneurial leaders so they can share their stories, their insight, their experiences. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to be inspired to take your small business into a national brand just like I did. Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry. Of course, I'm Ron, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop. Just a cleaning company, right? But no, far from just another cleaning company, the cleaning company that wants to disrupt the entire industry. This podcast is my opportunity to share the inside secrets of what I'm doing and what others are doing to totally disrupt their industry within the home services space. Today, we have an exciting guest, one of my all-time favorites, Joey Coleman. Joey is a customer experience hero. Hopefully, you've heard of him. If you haven't, you're going to be mad at yourself for not already knowing all about Joey and his principles when it comes to the customer experience. You may be wondering what even that means. A lot of people think customer and service and customer experience are the two same exact things. Joey's going to dive into what makes those two things very, very different. And he's also going to provide you with practical things that you can do inside your business and others have done inside their own business to create an experience that's truly remarkable. And on top of all that, he's going to teach you a formula, an actual recipe on how you can never, ever lose a customer again. He wrote all about this in his great book that has made him famous and is what made me fall in love with him, Never Lose a Customer Again. So sit back, take some notes, and learn how you too can never lose another customer. Let's do it. Let's jump right into the interview with Joey.
Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting me on the show. It means the world to me.
Well, you bet. It's an honor to talk to you today. So, I know why your words have value. I know why we should listen to everything that you have to say when it comes to customer experience, but our listeners, our franchisees probably don't. So if you don't mind, Joey, just kind of take a step back and tell us where you were and why we should trust you today when we hear you talk about customer experience.
Well, I appreciate that, Ron. So I've spent over 20 years of my professional career studying why do humans do the things they do and what can we do to convince them to do the things we'd like them to do. That's ranged from being a criminal defense lawyer to working at the White House, working for the Secret Service, the CIA. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I ran an ad agency. I've had a very eclectic career, but throughout that career, the way you succeeded in any of those positions I had was by understanding the human condition. And why do people do these things? And when I was running my ad agency, which I did for about 15 years, what I recognized is we were really good at driving new business to the door, but our clients weren't that good at keeping the business. And that drove me insane. They were spending all this money on their marketing and sales efforts, but they weren't realizing the full value of those customers because the customers that were newly joining their business were leaving, and they were leaving quickly. And so I began researching what happens during a new customer onboarding process and when do they leave and why do they leave. And what we found is across all industries around the world, whether you're product or service, domestic or international, online or offline, small, medium, or large, doesn't matter. Somewhere between 20 and 70% of new customers will decide to stop doing business with you before the 100-day anniversary. 20 to 70%. Now, to me, this was a gaping hole in the side of most businesses. Most businesses were spending all this time, money, and effort trying to get customers, but the customers were running out the back door as quickly as they were bringing them in the front door. And most business owners weren't paying attention to this. They were focused on the sexier aspect of a business, which is acquisition and marketing and ad campaigns and promotions and all the things to drive interest as opposed to retain customers. And once I realized that this problem was so big, I set out to figure out, how do we stop this? How do we stop the brand new customers that we've worked so hard to obtain or acquire or convince or sell or sell or market to, whatever words you want to use? How can we get them to stay long enough that we recoup the cost for acquisition, we recoup the cost for marketing, and we start to build the long-term relationships with our customers that will not only lead to a more sustainable business long-term, but will lead to a more profitable business long-term?
That sounds like a science to me. And
yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is there are numbers to it, right? Lots of times when you hear customer experience or customer service speakers or authors, it's all about how you make the customer feel. And, if you just make them feel good, they'll stay around. And while that conceptually is true, most business owners, most CFOs that I know say, yeah, but what's the price of feeling? And how do we systematize feeling and caring? Like They want a program, they want a methodology. And one of the benefits of having been a criminal defense lawyer and having grown up in that world, my dad was a criminal defense lawyer, is and it's the way I approach the book, which it's interesting if this was your perspective, like you're making a case, right? What is your evidence? What are the facts? What is the data? If I want to convince you to believe something, I need to show you proof other than me just saying it's a good idea. So if I can show you, here's how it works, here's what the research says, here's how it applies to you, that hopefully gives you the confidence to give it a try. And then when you give it a try and it has those results or better in your business, you'll double down into it even more. And then all boats rise together.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a really good segue into how I sort of stumbled into you and your book. And so this is me kind of pulling back the curtains, and I'm going to totally expose myself in the business, and it's not going to be pretty. And most franchisees hopefully are already aware of this. There's been a customer service or experience revolution already in our network because of this discovery. But sometime summertime or so last year, we stumbled into some data that was completely shocking to us as a brand, as a group. And we're fortunate in that we have our own software, and so we're really able to dig pretty deep to analyze the data. But we'd always been so good at marketing. We've been very good at closing the deal. You probably aren't aware of our pay for performance plan. Prior to you, I stalked Seth Godin.
Nice. And brilliant guy.
He is awesome, right? And I could email him right now, and he would respond in like 10 minutes.
He would.
How does he do that? I still don't know.
There's a number. I've actually talked to him about that specific thing of how does he keep up with people. But amazing human.
Well, from his book, The Purple Cow, we created this pay for performance unique compensation plan. And you may or may not be aware of this at all. But every time we clean a customer's home, we give our customers an opportunity to rate their level of satisfaction on a very simple scale of just 1 to 10. That number will directly determine the compensation level for the two folks who cleaned that house. That compensation plan was a direct result of the Purple Cow book. And we used that to our advantage for years. I mean, it worked like gold. Every time we said that to a potential customer, we sold that customer, and people were really excited about it. Even when we started franchising the brand, people who were really serious about starting a business, these are individuals who are looking at $150,000 investments. The pay for performance plan, more often than not, was the reason they made the decision to work with us, to partner with our brand. And so that pay for performance plan has always been the cornerstone for our success. And so we just assume, man, look at all the lead flow we're getting. Look at all the lead conversions we're getting. We are killing it because we're growing. Top lines, growing.
I get it.
So then we started looking at all that recurring data and wanted to see how long we were serving those customers. And that's when it got really scary. We were losing a substantial, really significant amount of customers. In your case, it literally was in the first 100 days. In our case, more like the first 90 or so days. But we were losing them pretty quickly in that relationship. but not so much afterwards. If we clean for you 6 months, 12 months later, then, other than moving out of town.
Right. Which are things that are beyond the control of any business or franchise owner, right? If your customer literally moves out of your region and you offer a service that occurs in their home and they move to another town that's, 500 miles away, there's nothing you can do about that. It's not because you were bad. Right. It was because life intervened. But what I love about this is, and forgive me for interrupting, Ron, but the research also shows, 20 to 70% leave in the first 100 days. And it sounds like your number was in that window, right? The research also shows that if on day 101, a customer is thrilled about the relationship, the typical customer across all industries will stay for 5 years.
That's enough.
Here's the thing. All you got to do is focus on making those first 100 days magical. Because if you do that, you lay enough of a foundation and you make enough deposits into the karmic bank account that you can weather the storm going forward.
Well, that's exactly how I stumbled into your book. So when I saw this data, it totally consumed me. And so for me, I'm a Warren Buffett fan. And one of the things that Warren Buffett has taught me is that it's okay to copy. And so I have copied a lot of things in life, nothing illegally. But in this case, I went to Amazon and I said, someone out there has the answer. And I went through book after book after book, and I stumbled into your book and I read it over the course of about 24 hours. Just devoured it because it all made so much sense to me. And I walked into the office. I literally read this thing at midnight. And I came into the office the next day and I said, team, huddle around. Life's changing forever. We're never going to be the same. And we've got to get our franchisees to start understanding how big of a problem we have. And I want everyone to read this book here in the office and let's talk about it. And so that's what we've been doing since summertime last year. And, we're slowly but surely getting there. The revolution hasn't occurred quite as quickly as I had hoped.
It never does. It never does, brother. Don't worry about it. Here's the thing. We didn't get into these situations overnight. We're not going to get out of them overnight. It's something that I try to remind business owners and franchise owners whenever I talk to them is that, look, number one, don't beat yourself up for how bad the situation is. Okay. Guess what? Yay, you're like every other company on the planet who focused a lot on marketing and sales and not as much on retention. But now you're aware, but know that while you're going to get out of it faster than you got into it, you're not going to get out of it overnight.
That's good advice. Well, why don't we do this? I know people are dying to know what the heck's this book all about. Before we get to the phases, because I know there are 8 phases that you kind of believe a customer goes through before they're graduating into perpetual customer. What is for the few people out there who really don't understand customer experience? What do you believe is customer experience? How is it different than customer service?
Yeah, so I think often customer service and customer experience are used interchangeably, those two words, when the reality is, and this isn't a criticism of anybody who does that, I see them as having two very, very different meanings. I see customer service as being reactive. I see customer experience as being proactive, right? Customer experience are all the little things you're doing to contribute to the overall feel of every interaction that you have. Whereas customer service is more what you're doing when something goes wrong or what you're doing to react to somebody who's bought your product or service when they need help navigating it. So I kind of think of customer service as being an item that is under the umbrella of customer experience, but that they are not interchangeable.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we all, once we hear that, it's hard for us to relate to our own business because we're so caught up in just the day-to-day nuances. But as a consumer, it's a lot easier to understand that. We want certain things. I always use the example, I have 2 small children. They're 4 and 8, and it's a boy and a girl. And I don't know, maybe every 5 minutes they fight. So,
oh, that's better than mine. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. We're at about 3.5 minutes these days, but no, it's good. The joys of young kids.
Right. So when we go out to a restaurant, they still fight. And so we stumbled into this Tex-Mex restaurant. This always has this like one-man band. And when our kids fight, no one knows it but us, because the band's always playing, Van Morrison or something. So,
Sure.
So we go there, and we've been there so often. When we walk in, even if it's a busy Friday night, the guy who runs the restaurant pulls us to the front, takes us to our table. We don't even order anymore. They know exactly what to bring us.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing: we don't order the same thing every time. They know our rotation. They know that last time we ordered this and like that. And then we're in and we're out. They every now and then they'll come and they'll pick up the kids and they'll like dance with the one-man band, and they treat us like rock stars, and they don't do that for everyone else. It looks like just for us.
Right.
Now we've helped pay the light bill,
Sure. Yeah, because you go there regularly. And here's the thing. When we treat our customers like rock stars, they want to keep hanging out with us, because everybody wants to feel like a rock star. So if you treat your customers really well, and you made they will keep coming back. You made an interesting observation there, that it doesn't appear that they treat everyone that way. Two thoughts on that. Number one, they probably are treating some other people that way as well. You're just not necessarily overlapping or seeing it, right? Because my theory is, if they're able to do that with you, they are doing it with other people too. And that's how they continue to be packed as a restaurant. But let me give permission to everybody who's listening. You don't have to treat all of your customers the same. Now, that is very different advice than you will hear from the typical customer experience expert or speaker or writer, right? I believe that you have to treat all of your customers well, but it is okay to be extraordinary with some and not others. I want everybody listening to feel the permission that you can do something above and beyond for one of your customers and not have to worry about, but if I do it for them, I have to do it for everyone. No, you don't. Because usually what happens is if you have that belief system, what are you going to do? You're never going to do anything extraordinary for anyone. Because your fear is, I could never scale this. I could never give everybody a special discount. I could never give everybody extra treatment. I could never memorize everyone's order. I could never ask everybody who came into the restaurant to come up and dance on stage with the one-man band, right? Because the stage isn't big enough.
Right.
So give yourself permission to have favorites. That's okay. I just don't want that to be an excuse for treating the other customers who aren't your favorites poorly. You have to treat all of them well, but you can go above and beyond for your favorites.
I totally agree. You know what? Why don't we start talking about the ingredients?
Sure.
I'm super excited to start, share the ingredients, those 8 phases we keep talking about of a really awesome customer experience. And, at some point after we get through the ingredients of that, I'm really excited to talk more about our industry and what your thoughts are on some things that, as a consumer, you'd like to see companies like us to, provide. So for the guys out there that haven't had an opportunity to read the book, there are 8 phases that Joey outlines that each customer will go through before they sort of, I guess, graduates, the best way to put this, into what I call a perpetual customer who doesn't need quite the same loving as they do in those first 100 days. So Joey, I don't want to steal your thunder here. If I'll just sort of sit back and take this in and enjoy it myself. But what are those 8 phases, and how can we relate to our industry?
Sure. So let me give everyone an overview of the 8 phases. I'm going to go through them kind of quickly, and then we can dive specifically into whatever ones you want to dive more specifically into, Ron. So I believe that every customer has the potential to go on this full journey with you through 8 distinct phases of interaction. They will only go through all 8 if you are consciously navigating them from one phase to the next. If you leave them to their own devices, they will not go through all of them. And you want them to go through, you want your customers to go through all of them, and you'll understand once I get through all of them, why. So each of the phases starts with the letter A. The theory behind this is if you're doing all of them right, your customers are giving you straight A's on your report card, right? You're doing a good job. So phase 1 is the assess phase. In the assess phase, a prospect is considering whether or not they want to do business with you. Okay, this is when they first see your ads, they hear about you from a friend, they see something online, whatever it may be. In common parlance, we call this marketing and sales. In most businesses, this is where they put all their time, money, and effort. In my model, it is the first of 8 steps, okay? So it's important and we need to pay attention to it, but it is a step in the journey, not the entire journey. Now, what you want to do in the assess phase is give a preview to your customer of what it will be like to work with you. So if you're saying, hey, we're going to do a great job, you want those interactions to be high quality. If you say we're going to be convenient, available 24/7, you want your marketing and your messaging to be available for them to consume whenever they want, wherever they want, how they want. You want to foreshadow your key elements of your business during the assess phase so they have a preview of what's to come. In phase 2, we move to the admit phase. This is day 1 of that first 100 days journey. The admit phase is when the prospect acknowledges that they have a problem or a need that they believe that you can help. They sign on the dotted line. They get ready to hand over their hard-earned cash. In your business, this is going to be when somebody calls and they schedule their first cleaning. Okay, they say, hey, we'd like you to come to our house and clean. So they've said they have a problem. They've committed that they're going to pay you to come clean their house. They're feeling good about it. And they've let you know this is what's going to happen. So the clock starts ticking, day 1. We then move to phase 3, the affirm phase. This phase occurs between the time they sign up and when we have the first real moment of truth, i.e. they show up at your house to clean. So the affirm phase, in common parlance, is buyer's remorse. All the research shows that when we make a decision to work with a company, we're feeling really excited about it, but almost immediately after we hang up the phone or after we make the decision to buy the product or service, our brain begins to doubt the decision we just made. In the affirm stage, our job as business owners is to counterbalance those feelings of buyer's remorse by reaffirming the decision that the prospect made to become a customer. We then move to phase 4, the activate phase. This is that first real moment of truth where they experience the product or the service for the first time. In the activate phase, we want to energize the relationship. We want to let our new customer know that doing business with us is going to be unlike any other business experience they've ever had. In your businesses, this is the first time they come to clean the house. What are we doing to make an impression that says this is unlike any other house cleaning we've ever had? And we can dive deeper into what that looks like. We then move to phase 5. And I will tell you as a heads up, everybody listening, this is where most businesses begin to fall off the rails, okay? Most businesses don't do a very good job in phase 3, the affirm phase. They do a decent job in that first moment of truth of delivering, right? The activate phase. But phase 5 is the acclimate phase. This is where the customer gets familiar with your way of doing business. And here's where most businesses go on to autopilot. And they shouldn't. They think, oh, well, we've already cleaned the house once. It'll be the same every time. No, it won't. It not only will be different for the people cleaning, but the person who hired you to come clean their house will forget some of the things that happened the first time and will need to be re-reminded of those. In the acclimate phase, we want to hold our customer's hand. See, you've done this dozens of times, hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. But for a new customer, they don't have a frame of reference and a context for working with you. They schedule that first appointment and they don't necessarily know, well, should I schedule the next one for next week or 2 weeks from now or a month from now? Or how do we do that? Do I call? Do I do it online? Do I do it with the person who came to clean for me? And even though some of you listening may have said, but Joey, we already outlined that when we did the original sales call with them. And maybe that's already outlined in the paperwork that they signed or the agreements they entered into. But folks, you sign things that you don't read all the time. You hear directions that you don't pay attention to all the time. Why do I know that? Because you're human. It's not a judgment, but a lot of people on this call, let's be candid, take pride in the fact that when they open a package, they don't read the directions. They just start putting it together or trying to use it. Now, you may have a partner or a spouse that is the opposite. They open the package and the first thing they do is they go to the directions. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe you're the one that goes to the directions and your partner is the one that just willy-nilly jumps in. As humans, we're predisposed to not necessarily pay attention to the steps in the sequence and the directions we're supposed to follow, which is why we need to hold their hand and acclimate them. We then come to phase 6, the accomplish phase. This is when the customer achieves the goal they had when they originally decided to do business with you. Every prospect has a goal in mind when they decide to become a customer. We need to pay attention to what that goal is. We need to track that goal, and we need to celebrate with the customer when they accomplish that goal. Now, let me give you an idea. Here's where probably many of the people listening to this call might have the wrong understanding of accomplish. For accomplish, the typical customer you serve, the goal they're trying to accomplish is not a clean house after the first visit. The goal they're trying to accomplish is a clean house going forward. Yes, the first visit is important, but so is the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth until it becomes a routine where they don't think about it anymore, where they know that their house has been elevated to a different feeling because it is being regularly cleaned, regularly maintained, and they don't have to devote any more time to thinking or worrying about or dealing with that. That's actually the finish line that they're trying to reach. So here's the great news, franchise owners. Your customer's goal and your goal are actually in alignment. Your customer's goal is a long-term relationship where they don't have to think about cleaning their house anymore. Your goal is a steady customer that continues to have your maids come and clean again and again and again, month after month. You're actually in alignment. So when that happens, we want to celebrate it. We then come to phase 7, the adopt phase. In the adopt phase, the customer becomes loyal to you and only you. They're not going to check around on other cleaning companies. They're not going to consider switching to one of your competitors. They are committed. They are all in. Doesn't matter what the price is, doesn't matter how things are going. As long as you continue to deliver the service and you continue to treat them well and fairly, they will adopt you. They will be all in. And last, and only if we've accomplished the previous 7 phases do we come to phase 8, the Holy Grail, Nirvana, the advocate stage. When the customer becomes a raving fan, referring their friends and colleagues, singing your praises far and wide. The fantastic thing about the advocate phase is this is where your marketing dollars go to zero. You don't have to pay for ad campaigns anymore because your customers are bringing you pre-qualified, fantastic customers on their own without you even needing to ask. Now, we can talk about how to ask for a referral because most companies do it too early or not at all, and they don't do it well. But if you've really built advocates, if you've gotten customers to this phase 8 advocate stage, your business starts to grow exponentially because it's the power of all the people that you're serving telling all of their friends what a great job you're doing. So those are the 8 phases of the customer journey and hopefully how they apply specifically to Two Maids and a Mop.
Well, they do. And unfortunately, they did not that long ago. When I read the book and I was sort of self-analyzing our business model and the customer journey that everyone goes through, what I reckon, our tagline is a maid service worth talking about. So our goal has always been to sort of create those Raven fans, to create those reviews, testimonials from customers. But what I recognized was that we really, for the most part, only had about 2 phases. The pay for performance plan, I believe, tell me what your judgment is here, but I believe the assess phase we've nailed.
Yep. You've really distinguished yourself from the marketplace by the pay for performance, and you've set it up that that's a really compelling offer for somebody to take a flyer and try with you. Now, I will tell you, based on the way it's been described thus far, and forgive me because I don't understand all the working nuance of how it works. If I'm considering a company that does that, I'm going to have two questions. Number one, so are you telling me that I get to decide how much to pay based on the service? Or is it that I pay this certain amount, but how much my cleaner gets paid depends on how well I score them?
Correct. Well, the number two is the scenario, but that's a question that does get asked often. I'm sure across the country, when I was on the ground early on as the founder, that was a question I received often. To believe it or not, the first 2 weeks of testing this Purple Cow, this pay for performance plan, we did go all in, and we allowed customers. This was when open sourcing was this like cool buzzword, right? And so we open sourced, and it was somewhat abused, and
it was a learning lesson.
And so it lasted 2 weeks. We honored all of those customer requests on what they should pay, and we of course paid our employees. But it would have killed us, But we did attempt that early on, and we've evolved and made better decisions going forward. But that is a question that people hear often. What I learned in my experience, not just as the founder, but as the franchisor now, is that for the most part, it's exciting enough to get people to want to hire us. The residential cleaning industry is very fragmented, as you probably know. I know we talked about your experience there locally in Boulder. Prior to talking here. But it's also not just fragmented, it's extremely boring. Everyone says the same thing. The rates are for the most part fairly in line with one another. And so, even though there's a million cleaning companies to select from, it's really hard to find one because they all look and act the same. So when we talk about this pay for performance plan, it certainly allows us to stand out. And I've always felt like that was enough. And so we then cleaned the house. And then shortly afterwards, we say, advocate, talk about us, provide feedback, and we go straight to stage 8. Immediately after cleaning.
Oh, I love it, Ron. This is a common mistake most businesses make, right? I often, in my writing and my speaking, I use a lot of analogies around dating. And the reason I do that is because whether you just became a franchisee in the last month, or whether you've been one for years, or whether you've been a franchisee in a number of settings for decades, kind of doesn't matter. All of us have been on dates, right? And here's the crazy thing about dates. Imagine going on a date. And it's your first date, you're feeling super excited about it, and you sit down at the table at the restaurant to order dinner. And before the waiter comes over to take your order, the person you're on the date with says, "So, when do I get to meet your parents?" If you're on a first date, that probably makes you not want to go on a second date. In fact, it probably makes you not even want to place the order because it feels like way too much familiarity, way too much assumption, way too soon in the relationship. The parallel into the business world is asking for a referral after the first experience. I'm not going to be excited to refer you after you've done something well for me once. I need to know you're going to be consistent. I need to know that I can count on you, that this wasn't just an anomaly, that you were able to clean the house and it looked fantastic and it was at a good price. I need to know that that can happen again and again and again over time before I'm going to put my name and my reputation on the line to refer you or to recommend you. So it sounds like prior, the old version of the franchise was that we would be seeking referrals too soon. Right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's an opportunity, and the referral program will work better if we wait a little bit.
Yeah, we went first to ninth inning quickly.
Right.
In about a week.
Let's get married. Come on. And you're like, no, we're not getting married. We haven't even ordered dinner.
You and I think, I don't know if I've heard you say that before or read it, but I think so similarly because in our world, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, but we have two experiences, both for our customers and our employees, which I know they kind of go hand in hand. One of the issues that we have in our industry, we're a blue collar workforce hourly wage. I hate the word unskilled, but that's the industry it's sort of categorized as. There's up until the recent crisis, unemployment was extremely low, and it was hard to recruit people to want to work for us, no matter what part of the country we're in. It's very difficult.
Sure.
So with that, life becomes difficult because there's a lot of demand on the other side. The pay for performance is working, it's generating the demand for the work. We could have a hard time keeping up. So long story short, one of the issues we've had to just hire employees is getting people to just show up for an interview. Like, just show up, like it.
Yep. Yep. No, I get it. It's crazy. I had the chance about maybe 6 months ago, sometime 6 months to a year ago, to give a speech to a trade association of people that did commercial cleaning. So not home cleaning, commercial cleaning. And they told me that the biggest issue they have is when they hire someone, whether they will show up for the first day on the job.
Yep.
And I have to admit, prior to hearing that, I was astounded to hear that. I was like, and call me crazy, I don't know. I grew up in the Midwest where it was very much like your word is your bond. I grew up in a family where if you said you were going to do something, boy, you better do it, because if not, let's just say it was more of a farming community where there were consequences, right? Okay, we'll just leave it at that. There were consequences. What's fascinating to me is I didn't even understand back then that this was an issue. I thought if you made somebody a job offer and they accepted, well, of course they're going to come that night or the next day to start the job, or at least a significant percentage were going to do that, like north of 98%. Yeah, you might have the one weird outlier. The numbers I heard, at least in the commercial cleaning side of the business, were staggering, to the point where on the commercial side, what they've gone to, the trendsetters or the industry leaders, at least 6 months ago, they were doing interviews in the morning, doing job offers at noon, and you were expected to be on the job site for the first time at 5 p.m. And their solution was, well, if we close the gap between when we make the job offer, when they accept the offer, and when they have to show up for the first day of the work, that'll solve the problem. And let me tell you, it was making it a little bit better, but it wasn't solving the problem.
Well, I can totally relate to that. We're obviously in a very similar industry. And so your dating analogy rings home because it hit me. We've got this ad, and for whatever reason, we get a large demand when it comes to job candidates. For most of our stores, they're overwhelmed with resumes and applications and such.
Sure.
Getting them to show up for that interview, however, is hard. And so it hit me one day, again, relating back to online dating here. Imagine putting your ad out there. I'm fortunately married, so I don't have to live in that world.
Yeah, you and me both. You and me both.
So I've got my photo out there, my bio, and so does the other person. And anyway, long story short, there's a hit. Somebody says, I'm interested. And so then, in our world, in this, hey, show up for an interview world, it's this, hey, whoever you are, I'll see you tomorrow night at 8:00 for the date, right? All right, see you then, bye. And the reality of that, I'm assuming that doesn't work more often than not.
Right.
And so in our world, that's exactly what's happening. We have this ad for a job candidate. We're saying, here we are. We'll pay you this in exchange for your service, your work. Let's have a 5-minute conversation, and then I'll see you tomorrow at 2:00 for an interview. Sounds good? There's not enough reason. There's no dating. There's no wooing. There's no reason to want to show up for that interview. And very similar to dating, there's got to be a reason for the other person on the other side of that screen to say, yes, I will meet you at that restaurant at 8:00 tomorrow night, beyond a 5-minute phone call. So when I said that out loud to our home office team members and all of our franchisees, it was like a light bulb went off, and everybody said, gosh, you're right. Why would the 100 job candidates that applied for this position show up for the interview when other people are wooing them stronger than we are? Yeah. And so that's what we've started doing. We've literally started wooing people when we send personalized video messages and crazy, humorous, I think, emails to them as, talking about what the experience is going to be. And we're engaging with them multiple times before they ever show up for the interview. And, we're not perfect. People still don't show up for the interview.
Of course. And that'll always be the case. But I imagine the percentage has increased dramatically.
Dramatically.
Right?
Through the roof.
And here's why. You're doing exactly what we talk about in that assess phase. You're giving a preview of what it's going to be like to do business with you. Because while I talked about the 8 phases as they apply to your customers, guess what, folks? Pro tip, newsflash, take the exact same model and apply it to your business, to your employees.
Right.
The exact same model. They are literally 2 sides of the coin. Ron and I talked about this before we started recording. It's not entirely a secret, and since I'm about to share it with all of you, it's definitely not a secret anymore. But I've actually just started working on my next book. Mm-hmm. And while my first book was called Never Lose a Customer Again, my next book is going to be called Never Lose an Employee Again. And let me tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear the full premise of the book before anybody else on the planet other than my wife. The premise of the book is this: the same 8 phases you would apply externally to your customers, turn them internally and apply them to your employees. They go through the same process. A candidate is assessing whether or not they want to work for you. Then they admit and they accept your job offer and they say, yes, I will work for you. Then between their deciding to work for you and showing up for the first day on the job, they go to an affirmed buyer's remorse stage. It's the candidates, the hires remorse stage, right? Where they begin to doubt the decision they just made to work for you. Then they come to work for you on the first day, the activate day, right? Where you're interacting with them and they're getting an experience. And then we think, oh, we're all done with our training, right? No. Then they go to the acclimate stage where they get used to working for you. After a certain amount of time, they accomplish the goal they had when they originally decided to accept your job offer. They then adopt you. They become loyal to working for you. And then they become an advocate recruiting their friends to come work for your franchise. It's the exact same 8 phases. You just applied internally to your employees.
So is it fair to say that this book, every page is just going to say ditto?
I mean, yeah, it's funny. I was talking with my agent about the book, and he's like, Joey, how long do you think it'll take you to write the book? And I said, well, to be candid, the framework's already there. All I need is the case studies to prove it. So in my first book, we had 46 case studies of companies, small, medium, and large, online, offline, domestic, international, you name it. Because my goal, again, as a recovering attorney, was to provide all the evidence for why you should want to do this. So it's story after story after story after story. Brands you've heard of, brands you've never heard of. And the ones you've heard of, I like to think we tell stories that you haven't heard that version of the story, right? So for example, we talk about Apple and everybody's like, well, of course, Apple has great customer experience. We talk about 2 things specifically. Why does your phone come pre-charged in the box, which most people have never thought about? And we also talk about the fact that at Apple, there's at least one, we know for a fact there's at least one, and I think it's actually a bigger team now, whose sole job at Apple is the sound that your iPhone box makes when you open the box for the first time, that little literally there's somebody who it's their job is that sound, right? So that's how detailed your work around customer experience can be.
It reminds me of our mutual friend, Jesse Cole.
Amazing human. Love Jesse Cole.
I love him. All yellow suit and all. And so he's hired someone to just provide high fives to the guys going to the ball game.
Yep, his high fiver. I love it. And his high fiver, when we were there, we had the chance to go to one of the games, is a little kid who comes up to about my waist, and he's got a clicker in his hand. And this kid's going around high-fiving, and he clicks the clicker every time he does a high five. And Jesse challenges him. Most people don't know this. I think Jesse would be okay with me sharing this. He challenges the kid to get more clicks. How many clicks can you get a night? And how quickly can you get the clicks? And he has gamified the system of high-fiving people, right? Yep. And it's this crazy weird thing, but guess what? You talked about it. I talked about it. I hadn't really thought. I went to a game at Jesse's almost a year ago. It's 6-8 months ago now. And I still remember specifically that little thing, even though I haven't specifically thought about it until you just mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, Jesse's a role model to us. He spoke at our conference just a couple months ago.
Oh, he's an amazing speaker too. Yeah, amazing person.
He is just a great guy to know. So I'm gonna steal some of your knowledge here and just challenge you if you're okay with that.
Yeah, please.
So the these are going to be probably easy questions and much more difficult answers, but I'm just intrigued, and there's no wrong answer here. And really, like I said earlier, think of yourself almost like a consumer. I'm going to kind of tell you what some of our weaknesses are, what some of our challenges are as a company, and just see what you'd like to see tell me what you'd like to see or feel as a consumer. So one of the issues that we have is, when we clean a home on a regular basis, that's our bread and butter, is the recurring revenue. We'll clean anyone's house, but those guys who want us every week, every other week, every month, those are the guys who really pay the bills.
Right.
So that's what we really work really hard to sustain. But every now and then, stuff happens,
Sure.
Whether it's an illness in the family, whether it's summer vacation, whether it's in like a teacher's case, teachers have the summer off. Every now and then people pause the service, very much like they do with the gym. Maybe they just, maybe don't go. We want to be nice, we want to be friendly. Course. And we say, well, sure, that's okay, but we've just lost revenue. And we don't often know of this cancellation until sometimes the morning of, or, if best case, maybe the night before. But again, we're still trying to be nice. So we want to make the customer feel like they have some rights here. We certainly don't want to be mean and rude and lose the customer permanently. So what are some things that we can do to create a situation, an environment where that customer still may have some motivations to suspend service for a visit or a month, whatever it might be? What can we do to, I don't know if the word's convince, but persuade people to want to continue that service even when they don't always know if they need it or not?
Yeah. So what's interesting, Ron, is I feel like there's a couple different scenarios wrapped up in that question. There's the person who needs to cancel that service because life has intervened, but they're going to be back with you again next week. Let's say it's which model should we use? Somebody who's getting their house cleaned every week or every other week or once a month?
Every other week's the most common.
Okay, every other week. Great. Let's use one so that we have a consistent hypothetical throughout this. So we've got somebody every other week and they're going to cancel, and they're canceling for whatever reason. But then the expectation is we'll be back with them again in 2 weeks. And then we have, as you alluded to, the people who are doing a pause, who for whatever reason are saying, hey, we need to press pause on this and we'll come back to you later. Are those kind of the two scenarios we're dealing with?
Right. How do we manage that? I don't want to. Certainly don't want to force anyone, but how do we create the psychology for the customer to not even think that way? Obviously, other than a real reason, an illness or some physical issue. But what can we do for the teacher, for instance? Let's just break it. Focus on one specific area. Teachers are really. This is a common issue for us during the summertime. Teachers will call and say, hey, I know you've been cleaning our home for the last 8 months or whatever, but I've got the next 2 off. I'll take care of it and we'll see you in August or whatever. So
Sure. So a couple of thoughts on that. Number one, when the teacher says, so we're doing the pause example, when the teacher says we want to put pause and I'll come back in August, if we have built a strong foundation throughout the year, while yes, we are going to lose those summer months of revenue, chances are highly likely that teacher's coming back. And we can take them at their word because we know how their job works. We know they have the summer off. We also, if we come from a place of empathy, most teachers don't get paid in the summer. So they're looking for ways to not have outgoing expenditures during the summer. And a super easy one, they believe, is to say, well, I'll just pause the cleaning. The fear is what happens if they don't come back. And I would imagine there's a certain percentage of customers who don't.
Correct.
So there's a couple different options. Number one, we could say, hey, we do year-round clean. Here's the thing. As a teacher, you may be in a situation where you don't get paid in the summer. So what we'd love to do is instead of charging you X dollars per clean, we'll charge you X plus a small amount. And then we won't bill you during the summer. So you'll still have the cleaning. We'll still have the pattern and the habit, but you won't have a cash outlay during that time because we've done the accounting for you. We've pre-charged you, so to speak, during the time leading in. See, lots of times as business owners, we presume that someone going on pause is about us, when really often it's about them. So let me give you an example. I travel a ton. you and I were talking earlier, I'm on the road about 3.5 weeks out of the month. And I too have two little ones at home, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And my wife and my two boys come with me regularly. They used to come with me all the time, but regularly we are gone for, anywhere from 1 week to 6 weeks straight. My trash cleaning company has a policy where I can pause trash pickup and not be charged for it 5 times a year. Now, here's the interesting thing. I can pause for a week or a month, and it still counts as one pause. So I can turn it on and turn it off 5 times a year. I love that. And as a result, I'm not going anywhere else. Because instead of having 6 weeks where I'm on the road every week going, oh, gosh, I can't believe I'm paying for trash pickup when there's no one there to put the trash out and there's no trash to pick up, I get to go, yeah, I'm on pause. I'm all good. Now, guess what? Sometimes I forget to pause. But then I accept the blame on myself. I don't go, oh, they charged me. I go, oh, I didn't pause. I should have paused. But I know I get 5. And every time I call in to pause, they say to me, hey, Joey, thanks so much for the pause. So, you just used one of your pauses. You're now down to 3 pauses between now and the end of the year. And the calendar resets every year. And so I'm in. If I'm you guys, I look at adopting something like that. Because now, as the consumer, I know I'm not going to have to pay for something I'm not using. But as the business owner, I get to say, hey, you can't pause every other week, dude. Like, come on. This is a business, right? We still need to operate. But by giving me, and actually now that I said 5, I may have misspoke. They may give me 6. They give me more than I think I'm going to need.
Correct.
Right? And then I don't use it. But then I feel good about it because I'm like, oh, okay, well, I haven't paused in a while and I'm okay. I can do a pause.
I'm frantically writing notes if you're wondering what I'm doing over here. All right. So I'm gonna, since we're in teacher mode, I'm going to let you be a teacher of one of our customer experience ideas that we've been beta testing in a few markets across the country. So I'm a big fan of your Affirm stage where, if I remember correctly, that's where a lot of buyer's remorse can occur.
Yep.
So in our world, in most cases, there's 2 different types of customers. Someone who needs this like yesterday, this afternoon, tomorrow morning, or whatever. That's what we call the one-time customer.
Right.
Also, the bread and butter customer, the recurring customer who's they're willing to wait. They don't need you tomorrow. Sometimes they do, but more often than not, they want a week from now or 2 weeks from now in some cases. So you've got this, whatever amount of time in between when you've closed the deal to you perform the work. And historically, we've just waited to provide the service.
Which is great. Let's not be critical, Ron. Historically, you've been like most businesses. Right. Most businesses, you booked your appointment? Great. We'll see you at the appointment. And that is literally the last you hear from them until you show up for the appointment, or in your case, the cleaners show up to clean the house. Right? Yeah, that's normal. So good news, you're average, you're normal. It's okay, no judgment. So now what are we going to do to enhance that?
So here's what we're doing, and it's super manual. We're not sure how to scale this right now. It's created a few headaches in terms of logistics, but it has, I should say it's worked because you're the teacher here. So we went out and we created we're pink and white. That's our brand colors. And we bought these branded pink and white balloons with the ribbon, and we tie it to a weight, and inside of that weight, there's a little handwritten note that says, thank you for, whatever. Thank you for using our service. We can't wait to impress you. We'll see you Tuesday at 1:00. And we leave that at the front door. We don't knock on the door. We don't do this to receive anything from them. We don't need accolades or pats on the back. We just leave it because most of our customers are busy. They're either working from their office or they're at an office. And so we want someone to stumble into that balloon and just receive it. And there's been a few people that have reached out and said, thank you so much. We've had some, even take pictures with their kids playing with the balloons. But all we're really trying to do is create this positive moment where someone says, oh, wow, they really see me. They want my business. This is not going to be like the other 14 companies that I've hired that seem to not even know I exist. And that's what we've been doing. Now we do that the day after someone schedules the work. So it's a Tuesday. maybe the work's supposed to happen on a Friday, on Wednesday, 48 hours before the service begins, we literally drive to the home and leave it at their front door. That's where the scalability and logistical issues come into play.
Sure.
But we pulled it off in a few locations, and it has been an overwhelming success so far. What are your thoughts? Are we way off there? Are we hitting the mark?
I love it. I love it. I think it's fantastic for a number of reasons. Number one, they've already told you their home address, so it's not going to be weird and creepy that you show up, right? So again, all of this stuff is business specific. The framework of the 8 phases applies to every business on the planet. How you apply it is very business specific. Now, as a speaker, if I showed up at the event host's house the day after they booked my speech for a year from now, and I said, here's some balloons, I'm excited to do a keynote next year, they'd be like, call the cops. What is going on? This is weird, right? My business, it doesn't work. Your business, it works. If it's useful, because I love the idea, I think it works incredibly well. Can we do a quick rapid fire? Let me give you some thoughts on how to systematize this and make it less of a logistical nightmare.
Fire away. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So number one, they make little balloon inflatable kits that are like portable little tanks. I would give tanks to your existing cleaning crews to put in their cars. Do they go in a branded vehicle, or do they go in their personal vehicle to go clean?
It's a personal vehicle, yeah.
Personal vehicle. So you give it to them to put in their personal vehicle, along with some empty balloons, along with some string, along with some pre-printed cards. Then you say to all of your cleaners, while you're out cleaning, we're going to tell you, here are the places you're going to clean today. Oh, and in between cleaning opportunities, potentially, you stop over here and drop some balloons off.
There you go.
You already have agents, if you will, out in the field working. Let them go ahead and drop off. Because I would imagine with many of your franchisees, the person who's doing the drop off will also be the person who ends up doing the cleaning.
Correct.
Not always, but often, right?
More
and
often than not,
especially if you're thinking about your territory in terms of geography. Like if you have certain cleaners that clean these 5 neighborhoods and other cleaners that clean these other 5 neighborhoods. I'm making this up to illustrate the point, obviously. They're already in those neighborhoods. If you give them the equipment, they can actually just put it together. Now, you're going to have to train them how to do that. You're going to have to explain to them what the messaging is if somebody comes home while they're doing it, or, if they pull up to the house to drop it off and they interact with someone. And then I'd also turn around and I'd say, and for everyone we're going to have you drop off, we're going to pay you an extra X dollars per time. Like pay your employees for it.
Right.
But realize that's saving you time, effort, and money to have them out and doing it. And with pre-printed cards at the beginning of the day, I don't know how you all normally let your teams know where they're going to be cleaning that day. Is it like an email that they get the day before or something like that? Or what's the logistics of how, if I'm a cleaner, how do I know where I'm going today?
So there's a couple of ways. There's the more manual way where there's an actual written, illustrated job sheet that we call it, but we also have an app for the employees to utilize that gives them the mapping of where they're going from point A to point B that day.
Perfect. So we just insert this as if it has new jobs, and the job is to drop off the balloons.
That's a great idea. You got to move. Yeah, let's get you over to the Southeast.
And here's the other crazy thing about that. It gives you an opportunity to reinforce to your cleaners, your employees, that they are part of the customer experience and the customer journey. It's not just when they're in the room, in the house cleaning. They're part of the journey before that, during that, and after that. That's what changed the philosophy in an organization.
Would you like to hear a fun story? So
I would love to.
So we historically have only had one corporate store. I was so excited about these initiatives and wanted to test these in a startup market that we went out and we found a startup market to open in. So we're also now open in Austin, Texas. I felt like that was a really good market for us.
Nice.
We're based in Birmingham, Alabama. So it's a ways away from our home office, but I also wanted to kind of have our hand behind our back. So that way, when we succeed, we could say, look, what we did with our hand
Sure, you have you basically have a test location, for lack of a better way of putting it.
So we're testing all these things there, and some things are just literally thrown against the wall. And so one of the first things we did, and I was, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, and I'm involved in a lot of decisions, but I had this 45-minute phone consultation with our manager there in Austin about one of our first recurring customers in Austin. And we didn't know a whole lot about her, and we were just sort of finding our way at the time. And so we went on and we cyber stalked her, and she's got like 3 degrees from Arizona State. And we also discovered on social media that she just had a baby. And so we went out and we purchased this little Arizona State Sun Devil bib, like baby bib. And we said I wasn't there in Austin, but the manager handed it over to one of the ladies who were going to clean. And there was no education, no preparation, and just said, here. And so she walks into the home, apparently, I wasn't there, and says, here. And the customer is like, what? How did you know I had a baby and went to Arizona State? And it kind of freaked her out,
Sure.
So what we learned from that is there's some real education that has to go all the way up and down to let people know that what we're trying to get out of that. And so our employee there in Austin was really just doing her job. She told her to give it to the customer, and she did, but we didn't tell her why. We failed. We failed there.
Well, here's the thing. And first of all, I love that story. Here's where, based on our conversations, Ron, I know you're different than most business owners. See, most business owners would say, see, Joey, it doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. It made our customer feel creepy. I don't want to make our customers feel creepy. We can't cyber stalk. We can't figure out what they are. We can't do those things. I don't think of it as cyber stalking. I think of it as investigating and observing to create a remarkable experience. So let me take an almost exact same version of the story, but play it out how it showed up in my life. So about 6 years ago, my oldest son was born. And not long after he was born, I got a package in the mail from our chiropractor. Now, there are a couple of things that I am crazy about, one of which is the University of Notre Dame, which is where I went to school. I'm a big Notre Dame football fan. I love it. Go Irish. I'm 100% all in on this. This gentleman, who is our chiropractor when we lived in Washington, D.C., is an Ohio State fan. Now, Ohio State and Notre Dame are not huge rivals, but they're enough of rivals that you're usually not cheering for the other team, right?
Sure.
So we now are living in Colorado. We are literally no longer in the jurisdiction where our chiropractor operated. I get a package in the mail, and I open it up, and it is a Notre Dame onesie for our baby with a note that says, I will never admit this publicly, but for today, I say, go Irish.
Oh.
Congratulations on your new baby. Now, what's great is I've told that story many times, so he has admitted it publicly. He just didn't admit it publicly. I admit it publicly. But because it was packaged with the right messaging, it felt awesome. It felt amazing. And I have sung his praises, and what he's done and referred people to him in DC, and he's an amazing guy. So you're right. There is an opportunity to educate our people, but I want to give the caveat that as you try to roll out these new ideas, you will make mistakes. Your team will make mistakes. You will go too far. Keep trying. Keep doing it. Okay. Lots of times when we're called to do something that is outside of our regular comfort zone, if it doesn't go the way we have as planned, we stop doing it instead of saying, okay, so why didn't that work? And you did the postmortem on it very effectively. You looked at it and said, all right, why didn't it work? Well, we did the research. We acknowledged the baby. We acknowledged it with the Arizona State. This is great. We're doing really well. But the person who delivered it didn't know the backstory. They didn't know why we were doing it. They didn't know how we did it. They didn't know how to present it. Imagine instead if that cleaner had walked in and said, we have a gift from everyone at Two Maids and a Mop. We understand that you recently had a baby. And obviously if the person's been cleaning the house, they know that there's a baby in the house.
Sure.
And we wanted to get a little gift for your baby that we thought you might like. Here you go. And it's wrapped. And they open it up, and it's a baby bib, and it has the Arizona State. You don't have to explain how you knew the Arizona State reference, right? But
Right.
they've got it and they're like, oh my gosh, now they have a little bit of story. Now, when they say, how did you know that Arizona State meant something to our family or was valuable, or why did you choose Arizona State? You can have fun with it. You can say, oh, well, while we have two maids and a mop, we also have the little pink elf. The little pink elf works at our office, at our headquarters, and just tells us magical things to do. We never know how they know them. We never know how it happens. I don't know actually how we found that out, but we hope you like it.
I
So
love it.
now we're having fun with it, right? We're being playful. So often businesses, and this drives me insane, okay? I'm about to jump up on a little soapbox here. So often businesses worry about, well, we've got to be professional. And you know what happens? The more professional we become, the less human we become. Or for some reason in business, we've decided that we want to sterilize the human, the playful, the fun, the empathetic, the connective aspect of the human condition. We want to sterilize that in a business setting. That's why people say things, well, it's work, not personal. No, BS. It is personal. It's all personal. It's all personal and emotional connections. That is the foundation of the human condition. It is the foundation of all business. And the businesses that are going to continue to succeed in the future are the ones that recognize that personal and emotional connection is valuable. I would posit it is crucial to your long-term success. And those who double down into those type of relationships will succeed. If you want more on this, there's a fantastic book called Giftology. It's written by my friend John Ruhlin, Ruhlin, Giftology, the science and art of strategic appreciation. It's all about specifically gifting your most valuable customers in a way that is not about just giving them presents, but is around strategic appreciation, the business case for giving tangible artifacts that show you care.
That's a great book and a great philosophy as well. We've utilized those same principles, or are trying to, in the testing that we're doing here. Well, Joey, it's been a heck of a 60 minutes or so that we've been talking. It's, for me, I feel like I'm not hosting. I'm taking this in. I'm being entertained and I'm being educated. And I am just as honored right now as when we first started talking to even just have this opportunity to talk with you and learn from you. And I hope we continue our relationship, and I hope we get to work together down the road as well, and hope you get a chance to meet our franchisees at some of them.
Oh, Ron, I would love that. I wish first of all, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. Ron, thank you for the work you're doing, for not only bringing me onto the podcast as a guest, but for the commitment you've made as a franchisor to teach your people the importance of caring. I mean, your people know about the importance of caring, but to reinforce it as an organization that, hey, we're an organization that really cares and wants to deliver something remarkable. I'm super excited to see how this franchise continues to grow and develop in the years to come. It's absolutely wonderful.
Well, I'm going to end with one thing. If we'll see how many people have been engaged to this portion of the interview here. For anyone listening, for any of our franchisees that are listening right now, Joey and I have already struck a deal here. Send me your best customer experience. You know the 8 phases now. Which of those 8 phases are you really excelling in? And give us a real case study. Give us an example of a positive customer experience that you've tested and utilized, and maybe even now using on a regular basis with your customers. And when you do that, Joey has agreed to send you a personalized copy of his book, Never Lose a Customer Again. So hopefully we get a lot of those responses. If we do, we're not just going to send you a book. We're probably going to test those in our corporate stores and then hopefully roll those things out across the network eventually as well. So
yeah, and if I may, Ron, I want to take the idea. We didn't talk about this beforehand, folks, this next part, but I want to take this and take it up one more level, because I absolutely love this. I love the commitment you've made, Ron, to work with your franchisees to do this. Folks, when you send in your case studies, if you get the chance, if you have any photos associated, we'd love to see those too, right? Send the pictures too. When we get these all in, Ron and I are going to look them over, and we're going to pick the one we like best, and I'm going to do an extra prize for that person. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a library of customer experience books. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I believe that leaders are readers. And if you want to be a successful leader of your employees, of your team, of your community, of your family, whatever it may be, you need to be consuming content. There are some absolutely fantastic books that have been written on customer experience. Many of them have been written by my friends. I want to give you copies of those books as well so that you can not only have a library for yourself, but you can consider creating a lending library in your franchise where your employees who are interested in these topics can check out a book from the library of Two Maids and a Mop to increase their knowledge and their commitment of creating remarkable customer experiences. So we'll do that as an additional bonus. So make sure you send in your example case. Hey, it doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be crazy, right? It can be short and sweet and to the point. Here was the situation. Here's what I tried. Here's what the results were. That's the model for a case study. Tell us what worked, what didn't work. If you want to do one that, hey, we tried this and it didn't work the way we hoped, no problem. We'd love to see what you're doing.
Well, you've wowed me yet again. So that's a heck of an offer. And I can't wait to start hearing some of these stories out there that are happening across the country. So Joey, thanks again for your time. And this will be what I hope the start of a really long relationship with us and our brand.
Oh, thanks, Ron. I really appreciate it. Same to you.
Hey guys, Beth Lovett in Business Development. If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with your friends and don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Cleaning Up. Have you ever wondered if you wanted to be in business for yourself? If so, then don't hesitate to give me a call at 205-789-8027 or email me at bethl@ineedamaid.com. And if you just want a window shop, then you can see us online at twomaidsfranchise.com.